Would you be the jerk for eating at someone else's place and assuming your daughter could have a third plate of food? We'll get into that in a bit, but first, am I the jerk for refusing to help my parents out financially because they only help my siblings and never me? I'm 30-year-old male, the oldest of 5, and my siblings are 28-year-old female, 27-year-old male, 25-year-old male, and 23-year-old female. Our parents were always generous with giving money when asked for it, except when it was me. I was told I should learn to work hard. I was told I didn't need the new video game or toy. I was told earning money was the only way I'd ever have money, and I hadn't earned money from them. But my siblings could get whatever they wanted. When I first graduated college, I ended up struggling financially because of where I went to work. The cost of apartments were so high. I asked my parents if they could help me out, and they said no. I ended up in a shelter for a few weeks and then rented a dump of an apartment with a friend who found himself in the same situation. They not only helped my siblings through college, which they didn't do for me, but they gave each of them lump sums after they graduated to help them get started in life. They also helped them out when asked over the years, during COVID years especially. They didn't offer any money to help toward mine and my wife's wedding. We didn't ask, but it stood out more when my sister, 28-year-old female, got engaged and our parents had mentioned money for all the weddings. Again, it was all except for mine. Only now this is all caught up with them and they're in a very tight spot with money. They're asking me for money too. They told me they need mine and my wife's help, and we should do it because of how great they've been and how they never say no to any of us. I told them they never helped me with crap, that they preferred to see me homeless rather than help me out. They argued back that it never happened, and I could have asked if things were that bad. I showed them screenshots of texts where I'd brought the topic up after asking them verbally. My parents dismissed it and told me they're still my parents, and I'm the most settled and I could afford to help them. I admitted that I could, but I didn't feel they had earned it. My parents called me spiteful and said I should help my parents rather than see them lose everything. I told them to ask the kids who they helped. My siblings were also ticked I said no. They told me mom and dad don't deserve my pettiness. Am I the jerk? OP's not the jerk. Obviously, the issue here is everybody on the other side had this wonderful, awesome relationship and experience together. Of course, they're all going to be against the black sheep, outcast, red-headed stepchild. How dare you not help out our lovely family unit? OP's Harry Potter and the rest are the Dursleys. Miss Dang Celeste commented, not the jerk for wanting to set boundaries, especially if you feel like the financial support isn't being given fairly. It's understandable to be frustrated if you're consistently left out while your siblings get help. You have every right to stand up for yourself and prioritize your own needs. Maybe have a candid conversation with your parents and about how their actions are affecting you and your willingness to support them. OP responded saying, a candid conversation with them is a waste of time after everything. I have made many attempts to speak to them about the disparity in treatment between my siblings and me. They only hear what they want to when it comes up, like how they conveniently forgot about me asking for money when I had nowhere else to go. Also, hi, I'm Steven, and if you guys enjoy getting to decide whether or not all of these people are jerks, why not hit those like and subscribe buttons down below? That said, our next story is, am I the jerk for wearing a two-piece to my kids' swimming lessons? I, 27-year-old female, am a mother to quadruplets aged 2. This is their first year taking swimming lessons, and at their age, the lessons require one-on-one with the child/adult, as well as an instructor to teach. So me, my husband, and 2 of my husband's friends came along. Unfortunately, all 4 of the kids got booked for the same time. They started the lessons on Monday and ended today, Friday. At the lessons, all the other kids had their mothers/female guardians with them, and all of them wore shorts/shirt swimsuits. My husband/his friend had trunks with no shirt, and I wore a 2-piece. Nothing bad, everything was well covered, but obviously my stomach and back showed. I didn't think it was a big deal, and I honestly didn't even notice what everyone wore until probably Wednesday, and it was fine because everybody, including me, was modest. However, they finished their lessons today. When everyone was getting changed to leave, a few mothers came up to me. They said they didn't want to mention it earlier to make classes awkward, but they and a few other mothers were uncomfortable with how I was wearing a 2-piece to the lessons all week. They suggested if I do another class with my kids here, I cover up my stomach because nobody wants to see it because of the stretch marks from my pregnancy, which is a lot more than average because I had quadruplets. I asked if they had an issue with how my husband or his friends didn't wear a shirt at all, and they said they didn't care because they didn't have the baby belly like I did. Now I'm back home, and I can't decide if they were being rude or just were honest. They made sure to tell me it wasn't about modesty, it was just my stomach. I never thought about it, so maybe it's my fault for being careless and not thinking of everyone else. My husband says I was fine, but all the mothers there apparently don't think so. Am I the jerk? Now, let's be completely brutally honest. Do they have a right to look at that and say to themselves internally that they feel it's unsightly? They're allowed to have that opinion, right? But I don't think OP's the jerk for wearing a two-piece that covers everything that classically would be considered inappropriate to any kind of swimming function. Sadly, because of people who have their opinions like that, you might get people like that saying that you need to cover that up, or that it's inappropriate, or that you're gonna scare the kids or something. Tennington Merson commented, "Not the jerk. Of course they were being rude. Does everyone have an obligation to cover every body part that is different, damaged, or unusual? We were really uncomfortable seeing your burn scars in your face, so wear a burqa, balaclava, or stay home. Think of the children! We know not everyone wears dark sunglasses or eye patches, but being blind, your eyes are kinda creepy looking and it bothers me, thanks. Yeah, being fat while taking your 2-year-old swimming, it just makes me feel icky because I'm scared of becoming fat. And even if you wear a prison jumpsuit swimming, I can see your double chin and hand dimples and they're icky, so please dispose of your body at your earliest convenience. Thanks. Their rudeness and entitlement is grosser than any stretch marks. People have stuff happen to their bodies. That doesn't obligate them to hide their bodies. Edit, I just wanted to add, sometimes feelings of discomfort are real. Not stretch marks, but some people really do smell terrible despite taking normal precautions, or can't contain all their fluids, or have scary crap happen that can be deduced from their injuries, but it's not like they left their good body at home so it wouldn't get worn out and brought the ugly one and need reminders about the acceptable dress code. When people have suffered, don't be a jerk and add to that suffering by also making them feel bad. The feeling of being uncomfortable by someone's body belongs to the feeler, and they need to act responsibly with it. Our next story is, am I the jerk for insulting my mom after she said she was aging better than my girlfriend? I'm a 30-year-old male. I've been dating Becca, 24-year-old female, for about a year. We met at my work. She usually dresses sexy, which I of course don't mind. I support whatever she feels comfortable with. My mom has been acting weird and jealous of Becca, especially now that I'm distancing myself from her so I can spend more time with Becca. For example, I used to go help my mom rake her yard, drive her into town, fix her computer, stuff like that. I didn't scale back 100% because of Becca. It's more that my mom is a pain in the butt and I'm protecting my own mental state. My mom is a pill addict and very emotionally immature. Well, my mom saw Becca last week at the store, and Becca was wearing one of those bandana tops. Like, imagine a bandana scarf wrapped around the chest and tied in the back. I had a housewarming last weekend for my new apartment, and lots of family came, including my mom and her boyfriend, Rex. My mom was wearing a bandana top just like Becca's, and it just looked kind of sad. She kept saying, "Becca, I bet you won't be able to wear your sexy outfits when you're my age," and all kinds of weird crap about how Becca won't age well. Becca looked kind of sad and embarrassed, so I took action. I told my mom that she looks like an old tramp and she needs to dress for her age. Rex jumped in and started saying he was going to beat me down, but he's on oxygen and recovering from a surgery, so it was an empty threat. I shut myself on the back porch to smoke until they left. Becca said she appreciated me standing up for her. Apparently, my mom has been sending her harassing messages on social media and generally insulting her when I'm not around. However, Becca also said that I escalated too much and shouldn't have cussed at her. Am I the jerk? I completely get why OP did what they did, and honestly, part of me wants to say OP's not the jerk. I guess it kind of comes down to your interpretation of, is what OP said having gone a little too far? Saying both to their mom, they look like an old tramp, and then also especially the detail, you need a dress for your age. So all of a sudden, it's completely fine for OP's partner to wear whatever they're comfortable with, but if their mom wants to wear something, they need to actually instead dress their age? Don't get me wrong, I'm still absolutely on OP's side, but there seems to be a little bit of hypocriticalness going on here. Intelligent Row 8327 commented, "Very weird response on your part. You shouldn't use ad hominem attacks like that. Honestly, the truth will be just as biting and much more useful. Something like, "Mom, you're being very weird and acting threatened by a younger woman. I'm sorry that you're feeling insecure, but this is embarrassing. Stop lashing out at her. You're both the jerk in this." Our next story is, am I the jerk for letting my daughter wear whatever she's comfortable in my house? Okay, this requires some important details. First, I am a 37-year-old male. My ex-wife Deanna, 36-year-old female, and I have 2 kids. Our daughter Jane, 12-year-old female, and our son Eddie, 10-year-old male. We got married semi-young at 23 and 24. We divorced amicably 5 years ago. Deanna recently married a man she's been seeing for a few years, who I will call A. Something I need to bring up here is that I'm half Mexican, Deanna is a white woman, and A is of Middle Eastern descent. While I wouldn't say A and I are friends, I do think he's a pretty nice guy and seems like a really good match for Deanna. The kids also like him, so that's another bonus in my book. Deanna and I split custody of the kids. However, Deanna and A got married 2 months ago. Since then, Deanna has chosen to wear a covering, which, I'm sorry, but the name slips my mind. She converted to A's religion as well, which I'm very happy about if that's what she wants. But last week, when she dropped off the kids, I was surprised to see that Jane was wearing one as well. But I assumed she must have wanted to wear it and was maybe deciding to convert her faith as well, so I didn't bring it up. I feel that she's old enough to decide for herself, and as an atheist myself, I'm all for my children choosing what they believe. A few days ago, I was going to see a movie with my kids, but told them I had to finish some paperwork in my office first, which took about half an hour. When I walked back into the living room, Jane was wearing one of Eddie's t-shirts and a pair of shorts. We had a conversation which kind of went like this. I said, "What's going on? Jane, are you supposed to take off your covering?" I don't really know how any of it works, sorry if that offends anyone. Eddie replied, "She hates wearing that stuff, so I let her borrow some of my clothes." Jane said, "Yeah, Dad, I hate it. Mom makes me wear it. She says I have to wear it all the time, even at your house." I asked her, "So you aren't choosing to wear it?" Jane replied to me, "No, I never want to wear it again." I checked her bag, and sure enough, it contained tank tops, underwear, and the coverings, which cover the hair and body but not the face. I took the kids on a quick Target trip before the movie to get Jane some clothes of her liking. 2 days ago, when Deanna came by to pick up the kids, she flipped out on Jane for not wearing the traditional clothing. Deanna and I got into a heated argument, and I told her that Jane shouldn't have to wear the covering if she doesn't want to, especially because it's very hot in our city. Deanna argued that she and the kids are now different and follow a stricter religion. I might be the jerk because I argued back that it's stupid that the religion would force young girls to cover up so much all the time and be so strict about it. Deanna took offense and left with the kids. I feel bad because I don't want to insult a whole country or countries, but I don't think my daughter should have to wear anything she doesn't want to. Am I the jerk? I don't think OP's the jerk at all. I also greatly value the ability to choose your religion, what you believe in, and almost like a step-parent coming into somebody's life and trying to force themselves as the new dad or the new mom, trying to force a religion on a kid is a great recipe to make sure that kid grows up probably not even wanting to follow any religion. I mean, that's just a major part of allowing your kid to have autonomy, their own choice. You want to talk about making sure that your kid grows up resenting you? Force them to wear a full body covering in a country where they can willingly and freely choose not to. Cruel Summer commented, "Not the jerk." So the covering is called a hijab, but Islam does not require women to cover. Plenty of Muslim women are not hijabi. The decision to cover, ideally, should be a personal one that you feel personally called or led to. Plenty of Muslim women adopt the hijab well into adulthood and/or also go through times of covering and not covering for this reason. What I'm saying is, you're not wrong, but you're blaming the wrong thing. It's Deanna and A's decision to make her cover like this. They are the ones who have this requirement for her, and they are blaming religion so that they don't personally look like the bad guys for instituting modesty rules. Tell them that their modesty rules are for their house only. And you may even find allies within their religious community who would vehemently oppose a girl being forced to cover against her will, especially when her father opposes this, perhaps even their imam. OP responded saying, "Thank you for teaching me something. I really had no idea about this until I did some research for myself. I have nothing against Muslims or their religion. I just said some stupid things in the heat of the moment. Thank you." Our next story is, am I the jerk for not letting my wife have some of my earnings from a business of which she wanted no part? My wife and I had discussed my starting a business for a few years. I was under the impression we would be partners in the business. When the time came, I needed my wife's signatures on a few pieces of paperwork. She was adamant she wanted absolutely nothing to do with the business. In fact, those were her literal words. "I want nothing to do with this business, it is entirely your project." And she was quite angry about it, so I took on other partners. Well, the business has since become profitable, and she's recently been making plans for the use of the money I make from the business as if it were her own. I told her, paraphrasing, "This money is my money. It is not yours, it's in a separate account with only my name on it. You said you wanted nothing to do with the business and said it was entirely my project." This ticked her off. My wife also found out I altered my will to leave my share of the business and the money in the aforementioned account to my business partners and not her. She is now livid because it means if I die before her, she will end up with only the assets we had from before I started running the business full time and the money she made while working. I told her again, "You said you wanted nothing to do with the business and said it was entirely my project." While I feel bad for the fate my wife potentially faces, am I the jerk here? I don't really know the full legality of what OP did here or not, if she is going to be entitled to some of that anyways, because technically it could be considered a marital asset as it was obtained and gotten during the life of the marriage. I mean, if OP kicked the bucket tomorrow, she might have a real legal claim, I don't know, I'm not a lawyer. That said, I'm just gonna go with a flat out everyone sucks here because it sounds like both sides kind of aren't happy with each other. And if it's to the point where you're willing to go behind her back and alter your will to try to leave her out of it because of this, it's like, is this marriage all that strong anyways? Like, do you guys hang around, laugh together, and sip margaritas together every other hour that you aren't upset about this business thing and changing your will behind their back? Aknoob commented, "Everybody sucks here." In fact, those were her literal words. "I want nothing to do with this business, it is entirely your project." Okay, so she made things crystal clear, and as such, that money is indeed yours. The fact that she wants to spend it now, not cool, and she sucks. My wife also found out I altered my will to leave my share of the business and the money in the aforementioned account to my business partners and not her. Wow. Talk about a jerk move, dude. Are you within your legal rights? Sure. You could leave your money to the Oscar Mayer Corporation in the hopes that they expand the Wienermobiles fleet. Do whatever you want. But good grief, you really did go to nuclear levels of petty with this. This next story is, am I the jerk for telling my child's stepmother to grow up and stop asking a teenager for support? I, 39-year-old female, have two children, Kimmy, 14-year-old female, and 9-year-old male, and share custody with their father, Dave. Kimmy is starting high school soon, and her school sent a list of their extracurriculars. I want my children to be academically inclined and join clubs to meet people. I told Kimmy to pick some clubs, and as of right now she picked out 10, which we are definitely going to shorten down. Kimmy sent a list of clubs to her father so he could help her. He didn't respond, and instead I got a call from Dave's wife Amy a little later. Amy asked me if Kimmy was really going to join all of those clubs, and I said not all, but probably some of them. Amy followed by asking if Kimmy could only join one of the clubs on her list, which confused me. I asked why. Amy explained that she has to go to work soon, and she really needs someone to take care of her kids. She was hoping that Kimmy would be able to go to their house straight after school and take care of them. Amy has 3 kids under 13 and recently had a baby with Dave. Kimmy has ADHD, which makes it hard for her to care for her own needs. I already feel extremely uncomfortable leaving her with 4 kids that young, unattended. Amy didn't even mention transportation and how Kimmy would get there. I told her no. This upset Amy. She told me that Kimmy is a part of her family too. And as family, they all need to chip in. And according to her, Kimmy should chip in by babysitting. She ranted on, giving me a sob story as to how she was struggling already with Dave working, how hard it was to be mom to 4 kids who depend on her so much, and how expensive childcare was nowadays. I told her no, and why I was uncomfortable, to which she just reiterated her story. This happened twice. By this time, I said no 3 times, and she was still asking. I thought it was clear that no meant no, not no and ask again later. I interrupted her and told her no is my final answer, and she's honestly pathetic to ask a 14-year-old for support, and it sounds like she needs to grow up instead of relying on children to pick up her slack. As you would expect, Amy and Dave are upset at me, which I don't really mind. My only issue is that when I told my sister, she thought I was being cruel, which is making me rethink things. Am I the jerk? I don't think OP's the jerk here. Honestly, I think if you can prevent your kids from having to go through a situation like this, all the better. I mean, I just put myself in Kimmy's shoes, and if there was a situation where all the time I had to go right home from school and babysit 4 other kids while also trying to attend to the things I got to do, especially with an added situation like her ADHD, it would be impossible. And I think it would make a 14-year-old in her situation extremely stressed out almost every day. Absolutely not the jerk. Cruel Summer commented, she ranted on, giving me a sob story as to how she was struggling already with Dave working, how hard it was to be mom to 4 kids who depend on her so much, and how expensive childcare was nowadays. Dang, too bad she just thought of these things right now when she learned the stepkid wasn't built-in free childcare. Maybe if she hadn't assumed that a literal child would function as a free nanny for her, she would have thought of all of this over a year ago and realized that it would be a very bad decision to have another kid when things are already so difficult with the 3 she has. Not the jerk. Amy does need to grow up and start making better long-term decisions so that she doesn't create situations for herself that she can't manage. She's failing to do that currently because she's assuming that someone else will bail her out of her bad decisions, so the consequences will be mitigated and she can do what she wants. That's bad, but it's even worse because she assumes that children will compensate for her bad adult decisions, which would be harmful to the children. Hold the line and make Amy figure out how to clean up her own mess. If Kimmy steps in as daily childcare, I think there's a pretty good chance Amy gets pregnant again. Babies are so cute and fun when you get to hand them off to someone, but if Amy has to find her own solutions, I think there's a much better chance that Amy decides she's done after 4 because she's exceeded her limit. This next story is, am I the jerk for using a kids teaching technique on my wife? My wife, 36-year-old female, and I, 38-year-old male, have been married for 12 years and have 3 kids, 10, 8, and 5. None of our kids have phones yet, so about 6 months ago, we had a talk with all 3 of them to talk about what they should do if they ever get lost, in danger, need help, etc. One of the things we talked about was them knowing both mine and my wife's phone numbers. I even made some flashcards with our numbers, in addition to their grandparents' numbers, so that they could memorize them. We kind of turned it into a game to help them learn, and it worked great. During that time, it came up that my wife doesn't know my phone number by heart. In fact, she doesn't have any phone numbers memorized anymore. I told her that she should at least have mine and someone else's, like her mom's, memorized in case she can't use her phone and she needs to get a hold of someone. She told me I was overreacting and that it wasn't a big deal. She then asked if I have her number memorized, and I rallied it off to her without hesitation, along with my mom's, dad's, and my younger brother's. Well, a couple weeks ago, she was at a work event about an hour from where we live. She somehow managed to lock her purse in her car. Her purse had her car keys and her phone inside, so she had no way to get home and no way to call me. Thankfully, a coworker of hers was willing to drive her home. But then we had to pile all 3 kids into the car and drive an hour to get her car and then drive back home. Of course, one thing that came up during that drive was that my wife had no way to contact me because she doesn't know my number. If she had my number memorized, I could have brought her keys to her and saved her coworker the inconvenience. She got very defensive about it, which I'm sure was because of embarrassment, but I used the situation as an example and told her that if it was an emergency instead, then it would be a much bigger problem. She eventually agreed that she would try to memorize some phone numbers. Naturally, since we already had flashcards at home for this very reason, I figured it would be a good way to help her learn. I got the kids involved as well just to reinforce that memorization for them. Problem was that my wife couldn't memorize the numbers. My kids knew them all by heart, even the 5-year-old. My wife got frustrated and embarrassed. She said she would just write numbers on a piece of paper and put it in her purse. I had to remind her that that would do absolutely no good if she locked her purse in the car again or lost it. She got upset with me and told me that no one memorizes numbers anymore and that even if it was an emergency, she would figure something out. I told her that's not good enough for me. I told her I don't care how frustrating or embarrassing it is for her, but she needs to memorize at least my number and someone else's. She told me I'm being a big jerk about this and making it into a huge deal when it doesn't need to be. I really don't think OP's being the jerk here. I think it's a very reasonable thing to suggest for someone. It honestly put a spotlight on it for me, and me realizing I only know like one emergency contact phone number, it makes me feel like I need to start learning some phone numbers too. And that said, honestly, as far as a teaching tool, if you can break it down to be as elementary as possible, that's a good thing. It's not embarrassing because you have to learn from flashcards. It's not infantilizing or emasculating in any way. The best ways to learn something is if you can break it down so simple a 5-year-old can learn it. I mean, look at the whole subreddit, Explain Like I'm 5. Salty Initiative 242 commented, "Not the jerk, but I'm wondering if your wife has some learning disability affecting her ability to memorize numbers? I agree with all your points. I've had to use my husband's phone number in many such situations. But also, I've had to use my husband's phone number in so many other situations, I'd have to work to not memorize it. Just registering my kid for school this year required putting his number on 3 separate forms. Signing up for summer camp, music lessons, doctor's office, they all want his number too. If I go to pick up his meds at the pharmacy, I have to give them the last 4 of his phone number." Our next story is, am I the jerk for assuming my daughter could have a 3rd plate? Yesterday, my sister hosted a family dinner at her house. It was one of those just because dinners, no special occasion. My sister is a great cook, and she made tons of food for that one night. My daughter was on her 2nd plate by the end of the night. Once she finished, she asked if she could get another one. I said yes, but my sister, her aunt, looked at her with a shocked expression and said, "Another plate?" My daughter turned around and gave a somewhat uncomfortable look. My daughter is 16 and has 2 part-time jobs to pay for some of her college tuition, so she usually doesn't eat until 7 to 8 p.m., so I didn't even blink twice when she got up to grab her 3rd plate. I turned to my sister and said she's been working all day without anything to eat. You made tons of food. It won't hurt for her to get another plate. My sister started yelling, saying something about how it wasn't my place to say if my daughter could get more of her food that she made. Now, I do somewhat agree with that, and might be the jerk because of that. Looking back, I'm thinking maybe I should have asked. My daughter ended up not getting another plate, and the vibe was awkward now, so we just decided to go. Before we left out the door, my sister stopped me and told me I should have taught my daughter manners and how it isn't right to get more than 1 plate at someone else's house. I told my sister she was being ridiculous, and somehow our voices got loud enough where my mom started to hear us in the small corner. She came over and started telling me she agreed with my sister and it was rude for my daughter to eat that many plates. I started to get fed up when they began telling me I wasn't teaching her proper manners, so I left. Then, of course, they began texting my phone saying how it was rude to leave in the middle of our conversation. I don't think I was the jerk at all for leaving because I wasn't going to stay in a place where I felt disrespected. But I'm not sure about the plate thing. So, am I the jerk for assuming my daughter could get another plate? So I'll be honest, I looked around at what some people are saying, and most people are saying straight up not the jerk. I guess for me it definitely depends how much food is still left over, but I am the kind of person who kind of values having some leftovers and things like that. Personally, I would go OP is slightly the jerk, solely for approving it themselves and not leaving it up to the person who's hosting and has all the food that they prepared, because I'm assuming from what it sounds like things were already kind of winding down at this point. And I don't know, I guess I just haven't really been a part of a family unit where it's assumed that it's just okay to hop right back up and have thirds if you want it, so maybe that's just me. Lizab77 commented, "Not the jerk. Families are often the first place where children get judged and where they don't feel safe. Your daughter was hungry, coming to a family dinner after working hard because she is courageous. And she can't eat when she's hungry? What kind of aunt or grandmother considers that a 16-year-old should stop eating? I don't know why, but I have the feeling that if your daughter was a boy, she could have eaten as much as she wanted because a boy needs food to be tall and strong. Second thing that seems curious, your sister makes a lot of food for those non-special occasions. What for if people can't take more than a plate? Just to show that she makes a lot but not giving a lot to people? If she isn't ready to share what she proposes, she'd better not be hosting dinners. But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. Now, if you want to hear another absolutely crazy Am I the Jerk Here story, check out that video on the left. Or if you missed my latest video, check out that video on the right. That said, I'll see you all next time with some more stories.